Dash. God bless the elder apostle, great millstone that will well. And shalom to the brothers doing the work to Syrian truth, pushing the word to the four corners. Shalom. I here once again, come out every week to prophesy the end of this, this current kingdom, this current rulership, man. We've basically been seeing in the past few months the main conflict that's gonna, have the whole world enveloped. The third world, which, the world is known as World War III. We have the conflict with Israel and Iran basically coming to a head. We had earlier in the week another plane gets shot down. Then Wednesday Trump saying he's going to release hellfire on Iran. Then Thursday flip flops on it, and that's apparently that's not going to run. And now you hear about the UAE giving $13 billion to Iran, where it's being looked at like as a backdoor deal. So this whole conflict is something where we're able to look to and know that's basically one of the key signs we're in the time of the end. The other one as well is the mark, the MOTB. We had the implantable microchip. That's something that's been pushed out onto the people, and really it's been accepted as an aspect that just people are looking at it like, oh wow, with optimism, not knowing that ties into prophecy. So I read this, Matthew 24:3. It says, and as they sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And that's really what the prophecies are for. It's for telling the sign of the times, to know when the end is going to be. And that's really how we know we're in the midst of it. To the point where, your average Christian will come out talking about these things. The average guy in the world that's since the Epstein files came out, they've become a truther, is going to be talking about these things now. Because why? That's really the focal point of the current times. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be impact on your life. There's people where they would have thought, the Middle East, it's another war, it's whatever. When the Iraq war was going on, they might not have thought about it. But as soon as the conflict with Iran started, you have instantly the price of petrol, all kinds of fuel, what's the other one as well? Fertilizer as well. The price of these things be impacted, because why? That's basically making it so it touches on everyone. And that's really how why it's gonna draw in all these different nations. Because why? It's basically a matter of prophecy. People might think, oh well, there's been all kinds of wars, but this is the one that's gonna be the one that's gonna be capitalized on by everyone. So this is what and Yahushua answered them and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So wars and rumors of wars. Because you basically have it where you've had various conflicts, even when you go to from when Israel got roused up. That when Esau set his nest among the stars with the Apollo 8 mission. But even with that, you basically had various wars. It was like Vietnam, but he had, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, these various different wars. But what lets us know about this war is basically how it lines up with prophecy. Because the nations that are going to be involved is what? The least of the flock. And that's been the
nation. The main A's of the nations involved. The main nation that's the least of the flock is Israel.
I mean the nations as far as in that conflict.
Yeah, I know. He said the least of the flock.
It was a switch to a different couple of half thing. I was gonna say it's like the nations that have been involved. The key one is the least of the flock. Israel being involved. Because that's basically the thing that lets you know, okay, that's what's drawing everyone into that conflict. Because a key thing that's basically set up, just like World War II, you had Axis and Allies. You have basically Israel and their allies, where America's the key chief ally, and then Iran and their allies, where Russia's the key chief ally. And those basically two different power blocks are contending. They're basically looking to establish themselves in that place of rule. And really, with this conflict, it's become evident the state of Israel is the focal point, it's the key. Because why? It's even with the discussion points. When you have these different political shows or whatever in America, they're always bringing up how, oh, Netanyahu, they're bringing up, oh, the state of Israel is basically giving Trump his marching orders. Because why? It's even when you go to his first term compared to now, even his first term, what was it? They moved the what's it called? The embassy, the U.S. embassy into Jerusalem, was basically giving what was it? The Gaza settlement, the West Bank, legitimacy, and that's the thing that had everyone kind of all up in an uproar back then. But then since what was it, October 10th, since this conflict kicked off, basically you've had America co-signing everything, funding them, and then you've basically seen the schisms as well between the allies of America with what do you call it, Europe, mainly the European allies. The schisms grow. So read this.
Let me read the scripture now. Joel 3 and 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men and let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, your prudence into spears, and the weak say I am strong.
That everyone basically, even those, everyone's basically being drawn into that war. They're preparing their economies for it. They're developing their military for it. Even with Iran, Iran's somewhere where you go back a matter of decades, they would have no business even competing with the U.S. But then what do you have happening with the U.S.? The U.S. military is getting clowned by their budget drones, man. Because why? Everyone's basically had in their minds put towards a militarization. Because why? Everyone's being drawn into that conflict. And then even with Iran, their drones are being given out to Russia as well for use in Ukraine. That's a matter of their alliance. And then various of the different materials they need for various aspects of their military, they're moving them around between allies. Because why? They're all being put in the same mindset where they're ready for war. And really, it's against America. That's the thing that Iran was saying when America was starting off their strikes. They were saying, well, we've been preparing for this war for decades. And it really happened. And obviously with the US, they built more than they could chew. They're not really up to snuff as far as what they were expecting to deal with.
Verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Therefore cause the mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, or Jehoshaphat.
Yeah.
For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about.
All the heathen are going to get drawn into that big conflict, into that third world, man, that third world war. That's really what, and it's a matter of, that's what the Lord desires for these nations.
And the locations of Levant, where you see the right now, Iran, Strait of Hormuz, that basically really is more towards where the state of Israel is, the Middle East as they call it. But that shows you the fact that you have the the Gulf nations incorporated in this war. Basically shows you the time it is.
So I read this. Revelation 17 and 16. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire." Let me go up actually. I'll start from verse 12. So verse 12 it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." That's talking about the EU, where they basically had received an extension of power from the US. Because post World War II, that's basically when you had the ascension of the US, and the function became the American Empire. But then the EU received a portion of that power, where they basically were like, okay, they'll give, they'll allow America to be the might on the earth, and then Europe would be part of that entity. But then skipping back down, it says what? So verse 16, "The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." So these nations, these European nations that were once at an alliance, they're basically going to be in a mindset where they're going to be like, yo, fuck all that, and they're going to go back to do it, to be in they're going to be in contention with America, because as far as it is, right now you can see America, especially underneath Trump, the relationship between America and the EU, that's basically been bumping heads, and it's really been because the military expansion of what Trump's doing. One of the things that he did when he came into office was change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And that basically has brought in a whole different spirit with how America's approaching war, even when you compare to his first term or when Biden was in office. And the operation that was done in Venezuela, the way that he's talking about doing the same thing in Cuba, that's basically bringing in a whole spirit. Then even he was talking about laying hands on Greenland, and that became a whole point of contention. Because why? Now's the time where everyone's getting roused into that mindset, where they're being prepared for that war. So I go back into Matthew 24. Matthew 24 and 6. "And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." And yeah, those hardships coming through, that's really something that most people aren't prepared for. The thing you can see as well is as soon as the conflict with Iran started off, it had huge implications on the global economy. And that's the thing is any point that Trump goes out and says, oh, we're increasing our strikes on this, we're restricting, we're going to put new tariffs on these different nations, that's having an effect on the global economy. Then that global economy is being shaken, that basically is the pains that everyone on earth is going to be feeling. Because as far as now it comes to the time where people have thought everything was in good case, everything was at ease, they were thinking that life was just going to continue, even with the 2008 financial crash. When that happened, people were thinking, yo, this is the end. But then the economy roused back up, and it seemed like America was doing well. But the joke of it is it was really in a 0% finance situation, where you basically had the ability to take on debt, like functionally for free, or very low interest rates, which allow people to borrow money, buy houses, start businesses, do certain things. But as soon as a means to increase interest rates, to slow spending arrives, everyone's feeling the pain. I remember it was over here, you had it happen with the mortgages, where the rates for mortgages got jacked up, and then people were feeling immense pain. So I read this, 2 Ezra 16 and 19. Well, it's up from 18. It says, the beginning. She normally
Turn this off. Stop it moving.
I'll read it again. Second Edge 16 and what was it, 18? It says, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? And yeah, that's a big aspect of what's going to be impacting people. People have been really in good pace, especially when you compare the Western world to other places in the world. There's people in the Middle East, they've been getting jacked up. There's areas of you know, in the Middle East, they've been getting jacked up. There's areas as well in Eastern Europe, various places, like people in Crimea in 2014, it was getting on top for them. But these are the things that you know, most people have not really had to think about, because when you deal with the Western world, it's not really been touched by these conflicts, despite you know, being involved in them. And that's something that's going to come as a shock to the world. Everyone's going to be thinking, oh, you know, everything's at peace, everything's at peace. They'll just think about, yo, I need to, you know, I want to get certain qualifications. I want to get a certain kind of job. I want to get a certain kind of house, car, whatever aspect of life they're looking to fulfill. That's what they're thinking about. But they don't realize that there's, you know, pain incoming very swiftly. Because the reality of what underpins the modern economy is the military-industrial complex. The economy of America runs off consumption and military conflict. And now you have, you know, the greatest military conflict coming in. And even with that as well, is you have the elites looking to crash the economy and introduce the beast system that's underpinned by the mark. So that means that all that everyone's invested in now, that's all going to go tits up. You had SpaceX do their IPO yesterday, and that's something where it's like, you know, people might think, oh, you know, it's a great sign for the economy. Everything's doing well with AI and tech. You know, it's optimistic looking forward. But then the reality of the matter is these things all being set for the economy to be deflated and broken down heavily. It says what? Verse 19, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. But yeah, that's really in the modern mindset. Most people aren't really thinking about when a bad time happens, any kind of natural disasters, as they're called. When these judgments come through, they're not thinking of it in the sense of judgment coming from the Most High. They're just looking at it as, oh, you know, it's just a happenstance, it's a coincidence or whatever, and it's just, you know, it's very unfortunate that it went down that way. Then the reality of the matter is those things are gonna become you know, a key point to look back at and be like, damn, we really should have taken heed to those signs. We really should have looked at those things as, oh, there was, you know, worse to come. Because the reality of the matter is for every empire, kingdom, rulership that's been on the face of the earth, that, you know, they'll have a rise, a golden age, and a fall. And that's something that you'll have recorded online. You look up the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, whatever. Rome is the big focal point everyone always likes to go to, because this is a rebirth of the Roman Empire. They'll look at it as far as, oh, you know, it's interesting different points on, you know, what affected their military, what affected their political system, how the different nations as well, all being involved, impacted them. These are all the things they're going to look at. But then they might not even realize that we're living within those same things taking place even now. So read this 2 Peter 3:3. It says, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? But since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. And yeah, this is the mindset most people are in. They're just thinking like, what, how could who the world calls Jesus Christ, whose name is Yahweh Shai, how could he be making his return anytime soon? The World Cup's on, the sun's shining, the weather's good. You go to Tesco, you can get food, you can get drinks, you can have a good time. In the midst of that, how does it seem like this system's getting ready to meet its end? But the reality of the matter is even with those prior systems, you'd have had people at supreme ease, and you'd have people going through hell. But just because you're at ease doesn't mean that everything is going to continue. Even whilst in the king's palace, it could have seemed great, but then that becomes a hellscape. So it says, and same words from the beginning of creation. It says, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of the Most High, the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. So there was a prior form of judgment that took place on the earth, and it was a flood that took out everyone. Everyone got taken out by the flood to where it was 8 souls were saved out, and that was basically the only surviving peoples from that flood. Afterward, it was Noah was the second Adam, where it then had to bring back humanity, and that's something that people aren't aware of or pay attention to in the modern age. They think of it as a fairy tale, but then that's them missing out on a key lesson, and that's really a lot of things within the modern society. The things that were written before time, they're not really held with any regard. A lot of people kind of look at think that because of technology, because of the shift, the diverse political system that takes place now, because of the means for you to, like, the various things you can do in the world, the internet, you can communicate and spread information. They think that now these times aren't beholden to those the same capabilities of downfall as it was before. But there was all kinds of greatness set up before. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon is cited as one of the great wonders of the world. That's something you can't even go and see on the earth, because it's been done away with. People go and see the pyramids and the Sphinx and whatnot, and they're not even in the same degree of splendor as they were when they were around in their times. That's why they basically had their time to rise and time to fall. And now in the midst of this, people look at various aspects of this civilization where they might think, the ability to put together an iPhone, the ability to make a car, the ability to make to fly, to send rockets into space, to beam signals through space, and then you can be on one side of the earth, someone else is on the other side of the earth, and then you guys can be video talking in real time. These things are mystical wonders. If you were to take them back to the ancient world, they'll be looking at it like it's something mystical. But that's something that's become a norm in this time. But then just because those things have come into play, that doesn't then mean that this place can't be taken down. The joke is the focal point people look at is nuclear weapons. Where you had during the Cold War the term mutually assured destruction, where people were like, the whole quote from Oppenheimer, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," is based off getting the atomic bomb. And that level of destruction, people look at as like, now we've become as gods. We've become able to bring an end to humanity as it stands. And that's really as much as they're willing to look at. But don't realize that there is a power above them. Whatever you're doing in your day-to-day, whatever those that bear rule over you are doing, and those that bear rule over them, there's a power above all that. And he's basically giving the green light for what's going to run, what's not going to run. And then with this time now it's been given into the hands of those prophecies, man. Where now you have America being in its decline, the Western world in its decline, China's ascendancy, because why? They're basically being used as a tool to drain away the power of the West. And then that big conflict in the Middle East and the conflict in Ukraine as well, where you have the focus of the world basically looking towards it. Now's the time for those things, and that's basically the steps on the path to this place's end. And then with this place's end is what? The rise of the kingdom of heaven, the return of Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus Christ, basically to bear rule on earth and bring in righteous order. That's really what is coming together. So I go back to 2nd Edge 16. So it says 2nd Edge 16 and 20, I read it again, it says, but for all these things they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. So yeah, that's the thing, is even with those signs, you can go to prior kingdoms as well. You think about the nature of these systems, even if you were to just use the carnal evidence you have, you can look at. You can go into a library, go into encyclopedias and put the history together of what was the political turmoil that resulted in this place coming to an end. Then you'll be able to transplant a lot of those things onto modern times, where you think, yo, you have all these different social issues. Then it becomes a thing of how can this place continue in the long run, and really it can't. But then people are just thinking, everything will work out. The modern thing that people have faith in is technology. They think, oh, we have these different problems. They're like, oh, what's going on with food? What's going on with this? Oh, I guess technology will deal with it. Oh, it's like, oh, people don't want to have kids or blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, technology will deal with it. Well, if we can just make like incubation pods and just grow people, then everything will move like the Matrix or whatever. These are things that people are thinking, because why? They're basically worshipping the system. They're looking at the system as a god, like it's going to answer all their wants and needs. But then, the reality is going to become evident. So it says, mindful of the scourge. So it says, verse 21, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. So yeah, victuals being good cheap on earth. There's an expectation of the nature of life to continue as is. One of the funny things is something as simple as food. A lot of the meat that you get in like a supermarket in the Western world is going to be through huge factory scale operations, where because it's done on such a scale and they're selling it at such a volume, they're then able to sell it at a discounted rate. But then if you were to go to like private or smaller level suppliers, you're going to be paying more. But these are things that have become as a norm. They used to just go into Tesco, you got bargain bin prices for things. But then the reality of the matter is a lot of these things, they're going to be ratcheting up in price, and it's not even going to be because of supply lines. It's really going to be the impact of the global economy. The fact that a lot of things are even at the prices they're at is because globally you can ship things around dirt cheap. You can ship huge volumes of goods dirt cheap. Even you might not think, but it's like things like chicken feed, fertilizer, etc. These things are impacted by it. You got a question?
Are you born again?
Well, what does it mean to be born again?
Right there. I know you're lost.
How'd you know? How'd you know? What does it mean? It doesn't say tried in by the Spirit.
You can answer that question without saying what you did. You got no blood testimony. You get up with a gimmick with the people there. Supernatural, none of you are converted. None of you.
What am I even teaching, bro? What am I even teaching? This is why it's like these born againers, man. They don't know what's going on. I'm getting into the prophecy. This guy, only question this guy's got to ask is, are you born again? Well, what does it even mean to be born again? And then really, it's you know, I would have asked as well, what's the testimony of Yahweh Shai, or JC as they call it? Because, you know, these born againers, these guys up in the church, they don't know what's going on. You know, the guy had a clean shaven face. There's a J. He's got a clean shaven face, not a lick of hair on his chin, because he doesn't know what it is to be born again. He doesn't know what it is, you know, to be within, to have Yahweh Shai within you. You know, he's basically utilizing. Well, he's just a Christian. He's called me lost, but then he doesn't know. If you were to ask him what's the mark of the beast, you know, what's the third woe, then you would like, would he have the answers? Of course not. And that's the thing, is now what the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. You know, the whole time I've been here, all I've been getting into is prophecy, and then getting into prophecy, then it's a matter of you need to be able to observe what's going on in the meantime. Which obviously that guy, you know, they don't know what's going on. For him to say, "Oh, you're lost," just off, you know, what is it to be born again? They don't know what the hell he's talking about. Because I've also asked him as well, what does who the world calls Jesus Christ look like? His first reply to me, why does it matter? Why does it matter? You're separating people. That's why he's coming in that same spirit. He's just a Christian. He's just a lost Christian. So it says, verse 22, 2 Corinthians 16:22. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy, and the dead shall be cast out of dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. Yeah, you hear like every other week, whenever the Gaza conflict flares up again, you have humanitarian aid trying to get into the Middle East, and then afterwards, like they'll say, what? It's a hunger crisis. Because why? Famine is something that can be stirred up very easily. The UK is an excellent example of that. It's an island nation, and there's a very small amount of food, as far as compared to, it's what I think 67 million. It's just under 70 million like population in the UK, and the amount of food that would, you know, that's being produced, and then even if you include shops, stores, whatever, it's going to be a limited amount. Because why? It's an island nation. Most of the goods are shipped from overseas. You go into a Tesco, an Asda, a Sainsbury's, a Morrison's, whatever, you're going to have, you know, a bunch of the fruit and veg that's going to come from overseas. It's going to be because of the climate in the UK, there's a very limited amount of things that you can get. So it's very easy for the basically for food to be restricted. And then when a famine hits, that's when people start getting extreme. It says what shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall be sword free. That's the thing as well. There's even going to be you know, conflict as well. It's not just going to be a matter of you know, people going hungry. Well, that's going to be a thing. What's the movie called? I forgot what the movie's called. But there's a few movies that show us, like, once people get hungry, they start getting extreme. The Road's a good example. The Road, Book of Eli as well. Those are two good films where it's like, because of the, you know, the post-apocalyptic straits they're in, a lot of people moved on to wanting to eating people. And that's the thing, is it takes extreme situations to push people to that. But most people have not even dealt with, you know, a relative amount of hunger. The funny thing is with the Western world, there's such an abundance to food that being overweight is more of an issue than being underweight. You have to really go to what they call the third world, to where you would start getting people where they're starving, they're emaciated, they're not getting enough calories. When you deal with the Western world, really it's people getting too many calories, and that's the bigger focal point. So they're even more at risk of when there's shortages of food, then they're going to start losing their mind. So I read this. Um, Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13 and 6 says, "How ye, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is at hand, and it shall come as destruction from the Almighty."
I actually don't know what price that you could.
What was it? So Isaiah 13 and 6, it says, "How ye, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall know." And that's the thing as well, is because of the dire straits, it's going to be impacting people psychologically. There's very few people that are ready to deal with an immense amount of hardship, where you're going to be dealing with hunger, stress. These things, there's people now where it's going to work and doing the 9 to 5 is enough to give them stress to where they need to be doing copious amount of drugs, alcohol, and blasting their brain out just to get through the week. There's people that are dealing with amounts of stress to where they might they're basically needing to do extreme things, man. They might be indulging in immense perversions to maintain their sanity on a day-to-day basis. And that's just dealing with the current system, where you get a full belly, where you might be able to pay for little ways to blow off steam and whatnot. So how much more so when let alone your stomach not being full, you're not even sure if you're gonna get through the day safely. You're not even sure you're gonna be able to to keep protect your loved ones around you in these things. When it's within those scenarios, then people start to get extreme, and then you see online, like, you'll hear stories about someone would have been in what do you call it, in a war zone in a certain thingy, a certain region. Then they just see family members get blown to bits. They might see their kids get blown to bits, their parents, their grandparents. Then they're just like, that's a whole different perspective on life. And that's something that a lot of people are going to be, coming to terms with. Because it says what? They shall be afraid, verse 8, and they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. They shall be amazed at one another. Their faces shall be as flames. And yeah, they're going to be in pain as a woman that's with child. When the birth pains come on, the contractions are coming, then the sharp pains start hitting. And it's it's going to be men as well. It's not going to be because of pregnancy. It's going to be because of the dire straits they're in. There's a lot of people where they get into them dire straits, they're not going to be able to take it. There's people now, when they get into a sense of hardship, there's people where they might have been like, they might have invested, I don't know, quarter of a mil, half a mil, whatever. Their life savings, they might have been building up. They might have been like 2-3 years off retirement, and then just been like, fuck it, I'm gonna gamble on the stock market, and then blow all their money. Then they'll just be like, yo, fuck this, and they'll take themselves out. Even in that strait, where they might still have a healthy body, they might still be fine, but then they're just like, yo, I don't want to deal with life. How much more so when these hardships come in? These people, their mind's going to be, pre-built to break. There's a lot of people where they might just be maintaining their sanity just about. They're only really, able to walk around and act normal because they know, okay, well, on Thursday I'm going to do this, on Friday I'm going to do this, Saturday I'm going to, they've basically got things set up where they're going to get their brain back to, to a manageable levels. But When there's no hope of that, people are going to start, turning into beasts. It says what, verse 9, behold, the day of the Lord Yahweh cometh cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. And that's the thing as well. It's really judgment taking place. Because the thing where the mindset a lot of people have is they're under the illusion that they're owed some form of positive goodness out of life. But the reality you're going to find is that was false. That was a falsehood. That was a lie. They weren't really offered anything other than their own destruction. Saving this. 216.
Doesn't want to be around
There shall be, I think verse 23. So it says, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. For the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. And yeah, even the cities as well. There's a lot of people where they're basically used to life in the city. They need a certain amount of engagement, a certain amount of distraction available to them. Those things are all going to be done away with. Jeremiah 5 and 6, it says, wherefore a lion out of the forest shall slay them, and a wolf of the evenings shall spoil them. A leopard shall watch over their cities. Everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many, and their backslidings are increased. So even the animals are going to be set loose, to partake in that judgment as well. You have a story come out every now and then where they say, oh, a lion or a leopard or a puma or something, escaped from a zoo, and it might just be roaming around, the English countryside, where the English countryside is kind of known for being a lot more tame compared to places like Australia or America, where there's a much lower amount of kind of little beasts out there that can come through and do a madness. But these are things where now the limits on them is basically going to be set off, and then people are gonna, might be roaming around. You might just think, okay, well, the thing is everyone's going to have to get into the wilderness if you're not partaking within that system anyway. As far as for the cities, everything's going to be under that beast system. You're going to have to get that mark. And the key point of the elect is they're not going to receive that mark. So they, you're going to have to be out there in the wilderness. People that are hoping to be amongst that number, they're going to be out there. And that's where it's going to get on top. Because you might have your truth or something, you're a Christian and might think, okay, they're down. But a lot of them are going to be sent out there to their own demise, man. And that's how a lot of these judgments are going to take place. It's basically the Lord's going to, line up. There's certain people where they might have, in the past been talking mess. They'll be on the comment board talking smack. Then afterwards, they see a few prophecies come to pass. Then all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, okay, so what's all this mean? They're making no account. You'll think it's just, okay, it's just, someone new to asking questions. You back and forth with them. But then the reality of it is they're basically been marked before time for their judgment, man. There's a judgment that's been set for them. It says what a leopard shall watch over. Everyone that goeth out thence shall be torn in pieces, because their transgressions are many and their backslidings are increased. And it's an apportion onto how you conduct yourself. Because most people, the way they move in the world, they're doing it with no regard. They're basically invested within the mindset, the belief system of Esau, Edom, where they're thinking, you basically out here, you only live once, you might as well just go and experience and do anything that your heart desires. But then being caught up in that mindset alone is you know, the you know, you being caught in the snare. So back in 2nd Ezra 16, I'll skip down a bit because this is one I wanted to touch on. So it says verse 27, it says, so that one man shall desire to see another and to hear his voice. For out of the city there shall be 10 left, and 2 of the field, which shall hide themselves in the thick groves and in the clefts of the rocks. So yeah, even the city is basically going to be desolate. And a good example of that is, what's it called? The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead, the earlier seasons, where it was, I think it was season 2, where they had to get to no, even season 1, where they had to go to Atlanta, because that was meant to be the evacuation spot. Then when they got into Atlanta, there was zombie horde everywhere, but then actual people, there was sparse. There was barely anyone you could actually go and see and get in touch with. And that's really going to be how the city's going to be. Another good example of that is Leave the World Behind, where they basically had it, they skedaddled and disappeared off into the wilderness, where it wasn't even that far out. It was really would have just been, you know, the outskirts of the city, you know, across the borders of the city. But then they'll like the city was made into a desolation, and there was just a few of them there. Then they had to deal with each other. Then even people were standoffish as well, because they were thinking like, damn, you know, everything's got on top. I'm gonna watch out for my family, and that's about it. And that's really the mindset you know, everyone's going to be forced to engage with, or they're just going to be evicted. Yeah, I'll go back to Matthew 24 as well. So Matthew 24 and 7, it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And yeah, that's the, you know, the beginning of sorrows as well. It's not a matter of good times to come. It's hardships coming as well. Because, hey, the reality of it is it's a matter of judgment, man. It's judgment taking place. The thing that most people like really are disconnected from in the modern age is that within the system, the foundation of the bedrock of how it was built up was on the sacrifice and destruction of Jacob. That's a big point. And then because of it being, you know, the American system being built off the backs of Jacob, then there needs to be a judgment and a correcting of the scales to take place. That's really what we're, you know, going to be seeing coming up. These different things happen, and the reason why, you know, the American dream, as it were, is being brought to an end is because of that. The reason why, you know, you had those a period of time where the saying of the British Empire was what? It was an empire in which the sun didn't set, because the sheer amount of territories and areas that the British had dominion over, you know, it was one in every time zone, minimum. But now you look at Britain, it's on its last legs. You had you know, the Brexit vote, which was meant to be, you know, Britain coming back into their greatness, and you've had various different studies and people look at the impacts of Brexit, and it's been nothing but negative impacts. You have Keir Starmer trying to get you know, the UK back into Europe, because why? Really, it's because that's part of the blessing, man. The power structure of what you call it? The power structure of Esau Edom is in those alliances, man. I read it as well before. The you know, the 10 kings. They basically what they received their powers as on behalf of the beast. They're basically part of that system, part of that structure. That's what gave them that strength. So, you know, breaking off and dealing by yourself ain't gonna work. And then there's wealth. So I read this, Daniel 2 and 41. So Daniel 2:41, it says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potters clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for so much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So within that system, this, you know, the EU and NATO, the alliances of these different nations, you basically have, you know, stronger ones and weaker ones. And they were showcased through the, you know, the 2008 financial crash, that, you know, Greece, Ireland, Italy still, those were the weaker parts of that alliance structure. But really, it's been shown the UK as well is also a weaker aspect of that alliance structure. The UK has basically been a financial services hub since the end of the empire. That's, well, actually no, it would have been after what's her face, Margaret Thatcher killed production in like the 80s. That basically brought an end of production. A bunch of industries over here like steel, coal, various industries that the UK was known for, those are done away with, and it basically became London the center point of the UK economy based on, you know, financial services. But then, you know, that's something that was really worked as part of the European structure, because it was part of the EU. You then had, you know, free trade, free movement with the EU. Those are positive to a bunch of different countries taking advantage of, you know, the financial services of the UK while still having access to the great EU market. But now that's come to an end. Then you have it showcased even, you know, even more strongly. The UK is really not that great by itself, and the fact that, you know, as an island, production-wise, doesn't really produce anything. And then and that's intentional. But then even with energy as well, the what's it called? Was it Nord Stream pipeline, the pipeline from Russia into Europe, that not being available, and then as well with the political tensions, energy's become an issue. And then, you know, the UK is basically being shown it doesn't really have that might, that capability to kind of, you know, stand by itself. And because of that, it's really amongst, you know, the weaker, the more broken part of those toes. I'll touch this. So Revelation 20:1, it says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is of devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up. So, you know, as far as Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, basically being put, restrained, and put in that base form, that happened throughout the Dark Ages. Because you had the fall of Rome, and that was really when the power structure of Esau was taken out. But then it says, well, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him. They should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. So now we're within that little season where he must be loosed. And then what? His job is what? To go forth and deceive the nation. And that's really the key purpose of this current structure. Is to go forth and deceive the nation. Really, it's drawing everyone into a belief structure beneath Esau. Esau's miracles, Esau's military might, military capabilities, the same as Rome. Also technology as well. That's one of the other miracles people look to, and they're beholding Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, as God on earth. They're seeing his kingdom, his system, as something that can't be brought to an end. But then it's something that needs to be around for a little season, and then that whole belief is even part of that perception. I'll touch on this as well. Revelation 11 and 8. It says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street. Because as far as with that system, what was it built on? What was the foundation? And it was the same thing that was clarified within the blessing, man. Genesis 27 and 38 says, and Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. So it's the same prophecy as well in Genesis 25, where it said that older will serve the younger. You live by the sword, which the modern day sword is a gun, military capabilities. That's a huge aspect of how Esau maintains his system. You just have to go and look at what Trump's doing in the Middle East and South America, and it becomes evident that military might is a big extension of how the EU, NATO extend their power. So it says, shall serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So the means by which he gains dominion and doesn't, he's not beholden to serve his brother, is through gaining dominion over Jacob. So reading this, Revelation 11 and 8 says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And yeah, that great city is talking about America. Spiritual Sodom and Egypt, they basically followed after the spirit of Egypt, where you have, was it Alexander's needle? I believe that was transferred over to Washington D.C. They call it the Washington Monument. That was not a monolith. What are they called again? I forgot. An obelisk. That's one of the obelisks they grabbed up from Egypt and transferred it to the U.S. Why? Because they're basically reviving that same spirit. Just they come in the spirit of Greece and Rome. They also come in the spirit of Babylon, come in the spirit of Egypt, come in the spirit of Sodom. Because they're basically engaging with the same spiritual practices that all those prior nations dealt with. They basically, revive their gods, revive their practices as well. The fact that you have, May Day, a May Day celebration, which is, spring equinox. What's it? Yeah, the summer solstice, the spring equinox, the autumn equinox. We basically have
that's quite helpful.
religious observations based on, certain signs in the heavens. That's why you have these things that are seen as, just holidays, national holidays or whatever within society. They're ancient religious observations that have basically just been given new age PR, and that's a lot of how they conduct themselves in a modern age. Even having a pyramid on the back of the dollar bill. you have to wonder what, why is it that, America, a nation that really should have no connection to Egypt, was like, okay, we're going to slam pyramids on the back of the dollar bill. Meanwhile, most of the other countries and nations, when they do their currency, they'll put their own national icons on them. But then why? It's really because they're coming in that same step. And then even how they bear rule within the American system, the Senate, they revived Rome to do that as well. It's really about bringing back, to life those same ancient systems. That's even why the Renaissance, the rebirth, that's something that is basically looked at as going back towards those same old ways of thought and ways of philosophies and politics and these things. We have, what do you call it, Christopher Nolan doing his newest movie, which I believe is this summer. It's going to be the Odyssey, which is ancient Greek tales. So, and that's something they call the classics, where in America you have to learn that in high school, because why? It's part of the bedrock of their civilization. So it says, verse 9, and they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. So even with Jake being that destroyed state, when they were in hardcore bondage in the Americas, there was the 350 years where no one came through and was like, no, this is wrong. We need to bring an end to this. No one came through like, oh, we need to. This is a was it sin against humanity? These are what do they call them? Not humanitarian crimes. Oh, it's a humanitarian crisis. No one was out there saying it was a humanitarian crisis, whilst the so-called Negroes were in hardcore bondage over in the Americas. No one really roused themselves up to engage with that. And what's it say? And they, verse 10, it says, and they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. So everyone really rejoiced and enjoyed the time that Jake had taken down. Why? All these different nations, they basically had a bone to pick with Jake. They had a prior time where they're thinking, damn, we need, revenge against Ada. You good? You good though, yeah? Yeah. These different nations, they were happy, glad to see Jake in that destroyed state. They rejoiced over it, because why? Even after Jake was taken out of hardcore bondage, you still have that same culture of Jake being looked down on, which really was exported from the US, prominent within the earth. You can go to places in China, Vietnam, different regions of Eastern Europe, various different parts of the world, where they're not really going to be trying engaging with Jake based off the stereotypes that were pushed out by the Americans. And it's funny as well, because even when Jake was in what should have been their lowest state, when they just come out of slavery, they still built themselves up. They established themselves. They set themselves up with businesses. They brought out towns. They built themselves up, and they conducted themselves, in a orderly fashion. It's only really with in the modern age, with that black culture, where this whole perspective of this ignorant black has really come about and been able to be propagated. Because why? They always had the stereotypes, but then the way Jake conducted himself was different. It says what? And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And yeah, that's the thing, is Jake rousing up, basically coming back to the knowledge of the Most High. That's something that really caused fear upon everyone on earth. That's really why they're not trying to showcase this truth and put on Front Street. But then even without that, the spirit still has it happening anyway. Those are the video from like years back, probably a decade now actually. That was on one of the guys that used to just re-upload videos from London from what's it called over here? Speaker's Corner. He used to just re-upload videos or streams or whatever people did on Speaker's Corner. Then one of our videos that we had went, super mega viral, where it got, like 50k, 60k views. Then it went to 100k, 200k, 500k. Then it hit like 850, 860k. Then the counter just stopped. And then you have to think, they just put a stop to that video completely, because the way it was going viral, there's no way it would have just stopped. And that was a video where it's a lot of people just in the world would have met day to day. They mentioned and spoke about those things. They said, oh, they saw the video, they saw certain things or whatever, and it was something that was pushed out. You go online, you'd look online, you'd be able to find people talking about it in various different forums and whatnot. But they'll be like, oh, okay, what's going on here? They didn't really get what's going on. They might have been like, oh, no, that's the Hebrew Israelites, when they say the black Hebrew Israelites, as they refer to us. But they would have looked at it, because why? That's really that whole spirit of Jake basically standing back up. That's something that's a marvel unto the world. That's something, as far as for the elite, they know the full scope of it. I'll read this, not so much, wisdom. Wisdom in Solomon 5:1 says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. So being basically standing up in that same spirit, that's really the mindset that is basically causing people to look. Because the thing is Jake has a shine anyway. When you have a good example you can go to is because you have the Michael film out as MJ. Michael Jack, that guy had a spirit on him, man. This guy was such a spectacular talent, such a legendary specimen. The guy could just be out there. Women are just passing out. Whenever you're watching this guy's concerts, this guy will be performing on stage. You have women clamoring to be on stage. Some of them will run up. They might just touch him, and then he starts passing out on the stage. But the security has to just come and grab them up and move them off. Because why, that guy had such a spirit on him, such a he was so creative that he was just a supreme marvel to the whole earth, man. Prince is another example you can go to. You have various of these Jakes where they have that spirit on them that they're just a marvel unto the earth. And that's just in a carnal sense, where they might be looking at their athleticism, capabilities that way, their singing voice, musical talents. But then when you get into a spiritual sense, then it magnifies even more, because then it's a matter of dealing with wisdom. And then there'll be people where it's like you chop it up, you do it back and forth with them, whether you're dealing with engaging with the word, or you might be at camp or just in the world, and they'll just be like, damn, you kind of know a lot, like you're really interesting to talk to. You've got a lot, because why? They're basically seeing that whole spirit, man, coming on you, and they're really understanding, like, damn, there's something about this guy. And especially with Jake have basically all these negative stereotypes, being a proverb and a byword on earth upon them, to where it's for you to then showcase that. How you doing, bro? For you to showcase that is really even more of a marvel in the world. And that's something where it's going to be broadcast. Everyone in the whole earth is going to see. And then even more beyond that is Yahushai's return. When Yahushai makes his return, it's shown, he's a so-called black man, which, the current world, that's not something people are thinking about or engaging with. Then it's really gonna be made clear. Though, these people were, there was something unique, something different, something about them, man. And everyone's gonna have to come around to that. Because there's what, verse 2? When they see it, they shall be troubled with a terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all they look for, even the strangeness of his salvation. The other thing is with the so-called UFOs, so-called UAPs, where that's become a focal point as well. You had the New Jersey syndrome, where you had a bunch of chariots just, zooming around to where people were camping out there for weeks on end, just seeing nothing but chariots, and people are trying to work out what's going on. You have Trump every few weeks, releasing the UFO files. Well, when you deal with the elites, they're aware of the nature of what these UFOs are. Because you go into the scriptures, you've got the chariots of the Heavenly Father, where they're known as the wheel within a wheel. They've got various different metals they're constructed of, and they move around in ways where it's like modern forms of flight, like an F-16, 747, whatever. They can move far more freely. And when you see the footage on these UFO files, a lot of it is the means by which they can navigate. Even if you're dealing with, like a satellite or something that's off in orbit, they don't have the same level of maneuverability as these do. And a lot of these, they're not off in space. They're dealing with in the atmosphere. So it's something beyond what Esau is able to construct. And that's something that, what's it say? It's a sign, but it's a curse. It's a curse onto this place, and really it's a blessing as far as for us, because we know it's a sign of our salvation, and it's what the angels of the Heavenly Father basically moving about, and letting Esau know that your time's done. It says what? Verse 3, and they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometime in derision and a proverb of reproach. And that's really the state that Jake's been in. You have a lot of Jake where they'll feed into that perception of them, where they'll just try and be a gremlin. They'll just try and be a demon on earth. But then even within that, you've had the Spirit of the Heavenly Father do work to where you have those of the hopeful elect wake up to this truth, be roused, be enticed within their spirit to go out and teach this word. And then, teaching it to the point where now a lot of these things have gone mainstream. Now it's the words gone out to such a degree. You have, mainstream news talking about things that we've been talking about for a decade plus. There was a point in time where if you were to mention World War III, people look at you like, nah, there's no way there's going to be a World War III. Now every time there's any aspect of the conflict with Israel, Ukraine, either the Ukraine conflict or Israel-Palestine and Iran conflict, those things come up. People talk about in the context of World War III coming about. A draft, these things, a big global military conflict is now on the minds of people in that sense. Even a mark as well. There was a point in time when you say, oh, everyone's going to have to get a microchip implanted within their right hand or their forehead. People would look at you like, why would they do that? Now that's something being promoted as something that people should be eagerly, awaiting. Where they're saying, oh, you'll be able to implant AI within your mind. You can have Google search in your mind. You might be able to bring up certain forms of information and then just have it available to you in your head rather than going through your smartphone. And that's something that's alluring to people, because why? They're thinking about just the carnal aspect of it, but they don't know there's a spiritual side to it as well. It's really a matter of, spiritually, it's part of the prophecies. That's part of the Esau's ability, what he's desiring to establish as his new kingdom. The current rulership is now, the current system as it runs now, is only for a set period of time. This isn't really what they're looking to bring to have as the final form of it. Which says what? Verse 4, we fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor. How was he numbered among the children of the Most High, and his lot is among the saints? And yeah, that's real talk. They really were looking at Jake as far as what are these guys really able to do? The joke is that Jake has been in that ruined state post especially in America. Jake in America is probably the most destroyed Jake you're gonna find on the face of the planet Earth. But then even there's still greatness and sparks of life amongst them. There's still talents as far as producing different forms of technology, different ideas, different products being made to where they're showcased on a global stage. There's a spark within them to bring about all kinds of different creative things that no one even would have thought about from nothing. And that really shows, even
It's huge.
even though what lying among the pots. Look at that. You're lying among the pots, man. You still have that spark, still have that shine. See now, what is this? So Matthew 5:13 it says, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savour, wherewith shall it be salted? Is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot of men." But yeah, that's basically Jake as well. That salt of the earth. They're really what gives savour to the earth. There's a lot of things where different forms of entertainment, different forms of creative pursuits and whatnot. Where you go back to the Genesis, the origin of it, it's gonna go back to Jake, man, to Israel, to so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Where there's a lot of things they basically brought forth, and that basically gives flavor and texture onto the world. There's a lot of things that people do. Is what you have? You have NBA Finals, man. What was it, the Knicks and the Spurs? NBA Finals. It's Jake. You got people in New York losing their mind. Because why? Because basically, Jake has really accelerated the NBA to get to that expressive, creative sport. When you go back to how it was being played with Esau, before it was just mainly Esau, it didn't have that same spark. And he really had trailblazers come through, man. It's like Jordan. Michael Jordan was really one of them where he made the sport that much more entertaining to engage with and watch. What else? World Cup as well. World Cup. Bro, you already know it's like South America has been maintaining that. But then even different African nations as well. You have a lot of them, the way they're engaging with football, with the World Cup. That's something that gets people very engaged. And then in football in general, you have a lot of talent come out of Jake that go out into the world, and that's what keep people engaged with it, man. Even movies as well, TV shows, a lot of these stars, Jake's basically, given the chance to flourish out there, they've basically been showcased to where they've really brought that flavor to the whole earth, man. If you were to wipe out all the Jake entertainers of the earth, how much entertaining comedy you're really gonna have? How many TV shows you're really gonna have? How many movies? How much music especially? You get Jake out of music, you're gonna barely have anything worth listening to. But these are the things that people, it's like I said, made no account of our labours. That's really the way that the world looks at Jake. Even though, Jake, they might listen to music, the idea of that kind of music even being made goes back to Jake being on the scene. But then they're gonna be thinking like, oh, these, they're just some blacks, just some niggas. So back in Wisdom of Solomon 5, as he's walking among the saints, I'll read this as well. Hosea 1 and 9. It says, then said the Most High, call his name lower me, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your power. He says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in that place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power. And yeah, just as you're going to have, the strangeness of their salvation, everyone's seeing, the glorious way in which those of the elect are going to be saved. Same thing you have with Israel being the chosen, Israel being seen as and known as the nation of Israel. The so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans seen as the nation of Israel. That's going to happen on a global stage as well. It's going to be to where no one's going to be able to question it, because why? It's going to be irrefutable. And that's the thing is when the blessings fall upon Jacob, everyone's going to know. And that's even what they said in Wisdom of Solomon 5. So at verse 4 it says, we fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor. So even looking at Jacob, they was thinking, these are just blacks. How is it they're even going to be, they're just going to die, probably get into some form of gang violence. One of them might just kill one of the others just over a phone or car or some kind of, a chain or something. They don't realize, as far as even if a Jake dies dishonorably on this side, they still have a place within the kingdom. They've just got to taste, the second death first. It says, how is he numbered among the children of the Most High, and his lot is among the saints? And that's really something plain. It really is a marvel. Even now, it's like people see, they're the chosen. They believe the blacks are the real Jews. What's going on with that? But then the reality of it's going to be, the thing is when you get into the prophecies, it becomes plain as day. Because Deuteronomy 28, that's really a whole chapter where Amalek can't really engage with that or look into that and think they have any space within it. It's very evident they've got no place within them. And then you look at all the prophecies of how Israel's meant to get back into the land. That's something that these guys don't fulfill in the slightest. So it's really going to be made plain, Ban this slavery and ships being scattered, being disconnected, discontinued from your heritage. These are all things that apply onto Israel, and it's basically going to be shown, who that true Israel is. And then, the fakes are going to be shown who they are. Because the thing is, anyways, the PR against Amalek is catastrophic right about now. Netanyahu's done generational damage, man. That kind of conflict going on in the Middle East, that's basically just showcased. No one's really looking to give them. No one's really looking to give them any shine on any time of day. Because why? They show, let's say, let favor be shown to the wicked, yet will they not learn righteousness. And then with, now, with the technology of now, being able to see and showcase all the madness going on in the Gaza Strip and whatnot, a lot of people have now, they're basically, even if they weren't politically engaged, they're looking there like, this is fucked up, which really it is. So I finish Hosea. So it says, Hosea 1 and 10 says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, and even the numbers of Israel as well, gonna blown back up to where they're an innumerable amount. But then the funny thing is it's going to be a small sanctuary, that's saved even out. There's a mass amount of dead being brought on the scene. Because why? They need to have received their judgment, for the work they've done generationally. So it says, as the sand of the sea. which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living power. So that's going to flip on its head. That's the thing is with this, these things, with who Israel truly is. That's something that's gone even more mainstream. It's funny because back in the day, you kind of think everyone might have seen a video passed by a camp, but then now with the nature of how things go viral, and even with, I remember a lot of the clips. What was the one? It was a Rasta Skank Slut. That one went viral on World Star back in the day, and there was a few of them. The old school Apostles videos on 34th, I believe it is, that went viral, and those got showcased on like the views on those was like million plus, multi-million views on all those videos, and then also on YouTube as well. They went mega viral before the channel got taken out. But then, with those things going out, it's a lot of people have seen it, but then they're just fanning the hand. But it's going to be something where the words that we're speaking becoming so true, no one can even contend or think about, now these guys are talking smack, which, now we're in the midst of. And then as well, it's when the miracles start happening, when Yahushua makes a return, then it's going to be irrefutable. When Jake's getting beamed up, it's really not going to be able to be questioned. Who would have chosen? But that's really where it's like all these different belief systems, all that's going to be thrown in the bin. Because why? It's going to be made clear. Oh, now these are the ones. So it says, I think there was a bit more on Wisdom of Solomon. Yeah, Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 6 says, therefore we have erred from the way of truth, and the light of righteousness have not shined unto us. Shine unto us, and the Son of Righteousness rose not upon us. We wearied ourselves in the way of wickedness and destruction. Yea, we have gone through deserts. Gone through deserts where there lay no way. But as for the way of the Lord, we have not known it. Yeah, they've really been wandering in the midst of confusion. They've not come to the understanding. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm good. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm hearing. Cool. Hammer. Okay. Nah, not really in a rush. Probably like an hour or so, something like that. Alright, cool. So what's it say? How's he numbered among the children most high? So what does it say? Verse 6. I'll just read it again for the song. So Wisdom of Solomon 5 and 6. Therefore have we erred from the way of truth, and the light of righteousness hath not shined unto us, and the Son of righteousness rose not upon us. We worried ourselves in the way of wickedness and destruction. Yea, we have gone through deserts where there lay no way. But as for the way of the Lord, we have not known it. And yeah, that's because really it's for those of the elect. That's who the light has been shown unto. That's who understanding has been imparted to. as far as understanding the scriptures go, that's something that can only be given as a gift from the Most High. There's something, anyone that comes up, you can sit there breaking it down for them, for 7 hours. If the Spirit ain't dealing with them, there's just no way they're going to get it. You might be explaining something plainly, simply through the scriptures, saying, okay, well, you line up X, Y, and Z. It's what can you even say to it? But for most people, they're not even going to be able to receive those things, man. It's really only for those of the elect. Because what's it say? Verse 8: What hath pride profited us, or what good have riches with our vaunting brought us? All these things will pass away like a shadow, and as a post that hasted by. And yeah, as what hath pride profited us? It's funny because now is the time really of pride. With the onset of social media has magnified it even further, because you had a spirit of pride on this place beforehand, where people might have thought, have esteemed themselves to a certain degree, or thought of themselves as have a certain amount of worth. But then with social media, that's become even more so. You had selfie culture and whatnot, and people just indulging in, let me just, record myself doing X, Y, Z or whatever, or thinking of what do you call it? Any time you're off doing something, you might be showcasing, okay, look at this watch I got, look at this whip I'm in or whatever. That's really the spirit of pride. But then, it's really going to be shown all that was for naught. What does it say? Second Timothy 3 and 2. That's off from 1. Says, this know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. So yeah, being like as far as in the times now, that's where you have, people really indulging in being lovers of their own selves. The means by which you can do that through social media is probably magnified even greater than has ever been on earth before. Obviously there were mirrors before, those ways, to indulge in yourself prior. But then the way social media also made it where it's accessible to everyone. Anyone could, you could be living barely getting by as far as life goes, and then think, oh well, you barely getting by as far as life goes, but then because you can go on social media and basically market and sell yourself a certain way, they can really start thinking like, damn, maybe I really have got everything going on. Maybe I'm actually a superhero on earth. But then, the reality of the matter is it's just pride. And, pride wasn't made for men. And it's something where, humility, the nature of humility is what? Humiliation. And that's something that, the Lord is basically getting ready for everyone on earth to be able to receive and feel, man. They're all going to feel that humiliation to where they can then be abased and put on a lower estate, including those of the elect, including these men. Everyone's basically going to be tried. Everyone's going to be put through hardships. Because why? That's basically what the Lord wants to have go down. And then for those where they're that fine gold, they're basically being refined through the purifying process. The purifying process. But then with those that, what do you call it? Those that are more carnal, not even more carnal. Those are basically they're not made of that pure gold. They're made up of the chaff, man. They're made up of the combustibles. they're just gonna burn out, man. They're just gonna, they're gonna be destroyed, man. That's what needs to go down. We'll finish on Revelation 11. Well, Revelation 11:11 says, and after these days and after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from the Most High entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying upon them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. So yeah, with those of the elect being saved out, they're gonna get beamed up into them chariots, man. And that's the thing is why is it these things have become a focal point within the world where people are thinking, okay, so what are these, UFOs, UAPs as they're referred to? Why is it the government's, got files on them? Why is it they've got incidents dating back to the 60s and 70s when they're calling you a whack job for, for thinking there are aliens out there, or flying saucers as they were called, that you're being dealt with like a whack job. But now it turns out, the government's been, dealing with them. They've obviously been wary of them, because why? It's clearly they're thinking there's something to them, and that's something that's really going to be showcased. the chariots are with me, and they'll have this, in an odd movie, they'll have those things. They'll have it showcased. So I think Nolan's a good one because they more or less have the angels going around to grab, those that would have been like of the elect to save them from, the earth getting wiped out. Where it's and knowing they have it where it's a solar flare or something wipes out the whole earth. But then you have, angels kind of going around. It was Nicolas Cage's character, his kid, is one of them that, goes and gets grabbed up by them, to get, saved off. Why is it that these things are put into the movies? It's predictive programming. They're kind of letting you know beforehand, but then the bigger thing they're doing is expecting an invasion to come from aliens or UFOs or whatever. That's really the thing that they're kind of drilled into everyone. Everyone kind of looks at it as they're thinking of if aliens come, they're looking to do an invasion. And why is that? Because of Hollywood. The day that stood still, Independence Day, these different movies, they kind of push that vibration out. That's why. That's really what they're. So it says,
Okay, so give me back.
in the same hour was there a great earthquake, and a tenth part of the city fell. And in the earthquake was slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the power of heaven. And yet even those that were saved out were still afraid. Why? Terror, because it's going to be immense terrors upon the earth. These different forms of judgment, it's going to be a hellscape. Even for those that we're aware of these things, a portion of these things that are going to happen and take place on the earth. And then even for those of the elect, no, they're still going to be in terrors. Because why? What does it say? The righteous will scarcely make it. It's really going to be like, seeming like, damn, this is going down. This is on top. Like, we're really going to be saved out of it. That's how these things are going to be. It says, the second war is past. Behold, the third world comes quickly. Really, yeah, like I was saying, that third world war, that third world. That's something that's been showcased that third row, that's something that's been showcased, man. With that Third World War kicking off. Where you really have it now being something that everyone can look to as, oh, this, you know, there's a conflict up and off, man.
It's my favorite issue. Ki kaçardım şum yani.
Isaiah,
No, pero ya mira, este dog
Isaiah 47:1
nació viviendo
says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt know the cool, tender, and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the fire, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man." And with, you know, with America, you really have it where it's, I'll not meet thee as a man. Well, make bare the leg, man. It's really been exposed the true nature of that place. And then even, you know, in the military conflict, there was a point in time for quite a season where America was looked at as somewhere that for anyone to even dream of competing with them in a military arena, that's just not going to happen. But it's something that's, you know, time and again, it's happened in Somalia, happened in Vietnam, and even with Iran as well. You have it being showcased where they're being shown they're not really on that kind of level. But it's also what? Read Joel 3. Plowshares, Joel 3 and 10, it says, "Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong." It's really the weak saying, I am strong. That shifted. There was a period of time where even when you go with nuclear capabilities, it was limited to what you call it, to America, the USSR. But then it's something where over a period of time, various different nations where they might have even been thought of as, you know, impressive or meaningful on a global stage. But now anytime that, what they call it, anytime North Korea does a missile test, that's breaking news. Because why? They have nuclear capabilities. They're part of the weak saying, I am strong. It's funny, like China, Korea and whatnot, prior to like World War II, their economies were like of no renown whatsoever. But then through, you know, their relationship with the US, they've been able to build themselves back up. And that's part of why you're going to have all these different merchants, you know, lamenting when America goes down. Because as far as they're seeing it, these merchants seeing America going, as far as they're seeing it, You know, that's their lifeline, man. That's the core of how they're able to build themselves up, man. That's the only way they can see themselves having a future. So it says, like in Isaiah 47, it says, thy nakedness, verse 3, Isaiah 47 and 3, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. And yeah, even with Yahushua's return, he's not going to meet thee as a man. When Yahushua came on the scene, you know, before, it was what? It was to make that sacrifice. That was really what he came to do. He came basically to establish the means by which Israel could get into the kingdom. But then, you know, now it's about receiving his inheritance and basically judgment. The Most High's judgment is being taken place, and it's a key means by which that's going to be pulled off. It says, as for our Redeemer, the Lord Yahweh of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Yeah, that whole shine, that view of America has really been done away with. It's actually been accelerated how much has been destroyed in Trump's second term. Even before, America wasn't really looked at with favor, especially when you had like how Americans conduct themselves overseas, how they're viewed from other places in the world, where they see them as unintelligent, simpletons, gun fanatics, whatever. That whole people might have still thought, oh, well, they've got, you know, a meaningful economy, they've got, you know, a certain amount of you know, military strength and whatnot. They might, you know, have hold sway on different geopolitical matters, but now they're just seen as kind of wild, chaotic entity. To where, you know, even amongst their allies, they look to like, damn, we might never be able to remain allies with these people because they're trying to do a land grab on Greenland. They might be thinking, okay, you know, we can't even like trust in these guys having stability going forth because they're just going around invading everyone. Like, what the hell is going on with America? The spirit of it has completely shifted. But it says, what? I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thy hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Against an ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And yeah, that's still crimes that have yet to be paid for. Going to Joel 3. Because Joel 3 and 3, I'll read that. It says, and they have cast lots my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head. So yeah, even with America, it's like, it's looked at us like, how are you even going to recompense for what you've done? You've basically taken and made merchandise out of the children of Israel, and then like what means do you have by which to make whole that ill that you've done? The means doesn't really exist. Whatever you're going to try and attempt, that's just going to be flipped back on you. Because in reality, it's like a judgment needs to take place. And that's, you know, an aspect of this, you know, what's taking place now. So it says, lady forever. So Isaiah 47 and 7 says, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy home. And then even with the way Trump conducts himself on a global stage, it really is in the mindset of, I'll be a lady forever. having that position of favor, having that cable, having that capability to even be that more pomp than his fellows mindset of America. That's something they think is just going to continue forever. But then the reality of it really is the shine of that time has really dimmed. People looking at it as they're looking at America as somewhere where it's not really going to be around too long, man.
The way you sort of say things back to me, I just think,
It says, verse 8. So Isaiah 47:8 says, therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And it's funny because, it says, as the ruler of a nation is, so are his subjects. And that same mindset that the elites have, where they really think, oh, they're going to be able to establish their new world order. They're going to be able to cement themselves and rule. They're going to be able to basically have that shine, that fame forever. These are things that evidently anyone can see it's decaying already. Everyone's talking about, China's going to, be the next one to rise up. Who's going to be the next, superpower to rise up on Earth? Because why? They're aware that America's in decline, man. It's in a state of a fall. And then even with that mass destruction and widowhood, loss of children, that a military conflict, actually touching the shores of America, that's something that really, other than Pearl Harbor, they don't really have. Even with the UK over here, there was like the Blitz in World War II. But America's really that virgin dawn, man, an untouched state, where for it to, for them to get jacked up, it's really going to be a surprise for a lot of people, man. Because there's what the loss of children, these two things. Because they that are given to pleasures as well. Basically just indulging yourself. That's really a nature of that system. It's the same thing that happened with the prior rulerships, man. In Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar was thinking, he's moving like he was a god on earth. Because why? Because he had the rule, man. He had the means, to have power of life and death over anything. Anything is your will is executed on. You're going to start losing your mind. And that's the same thing happening with, this happened with America, where they think they can just go, Trump's an encapsulation of that entire spirit. Where he's just like, you're just going to go to Venezuela and grab up this guy and whatever. We'll just grab the oil, we'll do whatever. Basically, that ancient spirit of Esau back in the time of the Greeks and the Romans. And same with America when it was being established. They just came over and it's like, we're just going to sit and establish ourselves on this spot. It says, but these two things shall come to me come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and a great abundance of thine enchantments. And yet, witchcraft is a huge aspect of how the elites of this society conduct themselves. The people that bear rule, on the prime minister level, on the business CEO level, up until those that are above them, the illuminated ones, these different banking families rule above them. They bear rule based on they bear rule they rule based on that witchcraft, man. They're consulting with demons. They're dealing with Satan as far as for how they're going to maneuver on the earth. They're thinking about when they're looking to establish what they're looking to establish. They're trying to do so based on based on various forms of witchcraft, various observations they do. Trump mentioned it with what was his name? Venezuela, man. Where he said it was the first blood moon of the year. And that was something that was an aspect of why they did, did the operations, how they did the operations. Read this, Job 20, and Job 20 and 17 says, "He shall not see the rivers, the floods, the brooks of honey and butter. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein. Because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not." Or even it says, according to his substance shall the restitution be. And then even with, what does it say? He that killeth for the sword must he kill the sword. He that leadeth in his captivity must go into captivity. Like basically the scales need to tip to where the judgment that, what he did upon others, what he did upon Jake, needs to be swing back and be applied on him. And that's really what you're going to have. You're going to have, Esau put into hardcore bondage. It says what? Rest of you shall rejoice therein. Because he hath oppressed and hath forsaken the poor, because he hath violently taken away an house which he builded not, surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly, he shall not save of that which he desired. And yeah, that's the thing is even all that was built off was theft and robbery in the first place. The American system was built off going into a land someone else was already inhabiting, taking all their goods and making merchandise out of their lands, whether it's the goods, whether it's the human capital of the southern kingdom of Israel, man, Judah, Benjamin, Levi. They'll put into hardcore bondage and made merchandise of to build up the the wealth and the system of America. It says what? There shall none of his meat be left, therefore shall no man look for his goods. In the fullness of his sufficiency he shall be in strait. So when he's basically getting ready to complete his system, that's when he's gonna be in straits. Because yeah, he's as far as with these elite, everything they've been working towards is, it's been centuries in the works. Everyone's now you've had the focus in the UK and Europe, even in America as well. America was more previously with 9/11, but where the focus has come on Islam as like, we need to stop these Islamics from taking over. But that's part of, you know, it was set up by Albert Pike, man. Where they were like, oh, they're going to give them as a focal point for when you get to World War III. You're going to be thinking, oh, we need to do it to you know, to save the world from, you know, Christianity versus Islam. But then really it's just a means to have a justification for when that conflict comes about. Which is really what they're looking to do, is really bring about those conflicts so they can establish what they want to establish, right? Which is that mark, that New World Order system, and then having a mass amount of death on the earth as well. When you go to the Georgia Guidestones, what does it say? Maintain humanity under 500 million. That was the first one. Live in harmony with nature. And then at the time when that was put about, it was like 6.5 billion people that had to be taken out. And now even more so. 7.5, I believe. So this is what, when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast a fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him down. He is drawn and cometh out of the body, yea, the glittering sword. That's the missiles, man. That's the thing is the focus of this. It's funny, well, part of the focus is the claim of why America's getting involved with Iran is because they don't want Iran having nuclear weapons. But then this conflict is really one that's where it's going to culminate in, you know, nukes flying, man, and various spots getting hit. Chiefly America, but various other spots getting hit as well. That's what's going to go down, man. And that's what it says. He shall flee from the iron weapon, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. He is drawn and cometh out of the body, yea, the glittering sword cometh out of his gall. Terrors are upon him. That glittering sword, man, that's really gonna, you know, do a number upon Esau's system, man. They're full of, and they think these things are gonna be to their benefit.
You know what I did today?
They're thinking, okay, well, you know, you have like Divergent is one that comes to mind. Brave New World, like 1984, where they'll have, you know, a post-apocalypse, but then in that, or even what's called Handmaid's Tale is a good example. The old school Handmaid's Tale, where you have a post-apocalypse, but then even in a post-apocalypse, they've established that New World Order system. You basically have like all the world blown out, but then you'll have that them establishing their system within that place. And that's really what these guys are thinking it's going to do. They're like, you know, whatever magnitude of destruction comes, they've got their Elysium. They've set their nest among the stars. They've got their hidey holes. You know, they dig into hell and you know, ascend into the heavens. They'll be in their space stations. They'll be in their underwater bases. You know, they might have their bunkers wherever they're hit, and think they're just going to be, you know, be at ease. But then, you know, it says even the angels will go and dig them out, man. Read that. Amos 9:2, it says, though they dig into hell, thence shall mine hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite thee. Yeah, even underwater, you know, the sea serpent, the Leviathan's just gonna go and be, like, yo, snap them up, man. And they're gonna get grabbed up. Because what it says, the first, you know, what's say, your kings shall be our nursing father, queens shall be our nursing mother, kings shall be our nursing fathers. You know, the royalty, the rulership class, that's going to be the first fruits of slavery in the kingdom. Because there's what, Back in Job 30, so like Job 20. It says, all darkness shall be hid in his secret places, a fire not blown shall consume him. It shall go ill with that with him that is left in his tabernacle. Yes, it's funny as well because it's iconic. The mushroom cloud that you get when a nuclear device goes off. Then even with it, you have what they call it, nuclear winter, where it will blow out aspects of not the environment, aspects of the atmosphere as well blown out. It's a majorly destructive force. One of the hydrogen bombs going off, that's already going to be legendary. And then you have the footage of Sarah Connor, man, in Terminator 2, where she's on the fence of the playground, and then she gets blown to bits. What do they say? Their tongue shall consume. Tongue shall consume. Their eyes will consume, and their socket. Yeah. Zechariah 14 and 12 says, and this is the plague wherewith the Lord Jehovah will smite all the people that fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. So you can be disintegrating on the spot. There's people hit with that where your eyes and sockets are going to be boiling now. And that's the nature of destruction that's going to be dealt with. So you can read this as well. That's something that, picture it, your tongue, even if someone catches fire, or you hit them with a flamethrower, or it's a house fire or something, and people are getting burnt then, it's not even to the point where, their tongue's getting vaporized in their mouth. They'll usually just like, the skin will start sloughing off and melting. But then, for the levels of heat where you're getting vaporized, that's a whole different ballgame. It says what, Isaiah 9 and 5, it says, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but it shall be with burning and fuel of fire. That's really the scale's going to be, burning and fuel of fire, man. They're really going to get hit with that heat. And that's what a lot of people, they're anxious of. People where they're trying to placate Russia because they don't want Russia to hit the nuclear button. But what they don't realize is the Lord's the one in control. If Russia don't want to hit the nuclear button, the angel's going to be sent, and they're gonna slam the whole fist on that button and make sure the missiles fly. Because why? It's a matter of prophecy. Their missiles need to go out and do what they need to do, man. I'm going to close up. Your brother's close. I'll stop. Yeah. this. Revelation 3 and 10 says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Yeah, the hour of temptation, man. That's something that really is going to come as a shock to most people on the face of the earth. They're not really holding, bearing in regard these prophecies, man, the words of this book, and that's really where the disconnect is. As far as the Lord's basically getting ready to put these things into action. And that the hour of temptation, that's a big part of that mark as well, where the pieces for that have more or less come together. These different systems. The funny thing with these systems is a lot of them are already working. You consider with like Visa and MasterCard, there's already been complaints of where there might be certain people from certain political groups or people from certain parts of the world where they'll say, oh, Visa and MasterCard just took away their ability to make purchases, to spend money, to even access their bank account and whatnot. That's something they know has impacted and affected them. So they're aware, like, damn, these guys can already do it. It's more or less a monopoly, Visa and MasterCard already, to where like the EU was trying to put theirs together, but then China have their own monopoly underneath, like Alibaba and WeChat, where it's Alipay and WePay, are kind of the bulk of how people make their payments. But then so the aspects of the system are already there, and really it's just a matter of moving over onto that mark. And that's like a lot of things where you had to push in the UK for what is it, the digital ID. That's something people think, because they did a petition, because they said, we're very upset about this, we don't want this to happen. They think it's something that's put to a stop. But then the prophecy is a prophecy. They basically bring these things in whether you like it or not. And then even with Labour just bringing it in, there's certain things where when I think it was Trump's first term, he was trying to do it, there was pushback, but then when it was done under Biden, they just bring in the next whoever, where it's meant to be the opposite political side, then they just push things through, and then there'll be less resistance, because they're like, well, I got my political guys in there or whatever, or they're doing the things that I want to do, so there's less resistance to it. And over here in the UK, it's looking like reform's going to come in next. And then as far as for reform, they're basically going to be bringing in a bunch of changes under the justification even for the national ID in the UK was done under controlling immigration. It was funny because they said with Labour, the way they've with the national ID as well, with Labour, they said like they've brought down immigration like to the lowest numbers than like any of the prior Conservative governments. But when if reform comes in, then they can just say, we're bringing in that national ID because it'll basically cement in immigration, man. That's a whole angle they can push it for. And these are things where it's like people aren't really meditating on or thinking of, but that's really what they're looking to get going and bring into action, man. I read
IDs, they kind of said that they was going to push it to the side.
But it's still like
Right.
getting put in.
That's what they. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, that the king doubled down on it.
Yeah.
So he thought that it was going to go away. The king said, "Well, that speech that they're definitely going to do that." So I think people thought that a victory of we protested against digital IDs. But I mean, a lot of these protests that take place, especially the anarchy, that's part of an excuse for them to get it, like you say. The anarchy itself is one of the reasons why they say right.
Funny you mentioned that because I think I saw yesterday they said what was it? Palestine Action for Palestine or Palestine, whatever they're called. They said they were being tried as T's for going into I can find the article actually. But I think it was they went into a weapon production factory or something. So they're getting tried as T's. So that's like being cemented. It's like certain protest groups, classify them as that. Then legally they can say, okay, well, we're just gonna bring that force against you.
Reset. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 verse 11. That Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
Yeah. They've been broadening that team expression. Yeah.
Because it's backwards, but
They've done been extending the meaning of what T is.
in America as well, yeah. So I think they said if you're against AI data centers, you get classified as domestic team in the US as well now. So they've broadened it heavily, and it's gonna kind of be whatever the government's doing, you're going against it, okay, domestic team.
You're like kind of pushing that in a way with the 5G towers.
Yeah.
People are like,
The 5G towers and like tearing them down, yeah.
So basically, anything linked to the AI grid,
Blade Runners.
right, Blade Runners, yeah.
Wow.
So they show you that, man. You get the AI data, get the databases and all that. Brigham and shit like that.
Cyber them.
So,
Kind of crazy.
right, and that's happening within the country. That's why AI is getting pushed in every aspect of life. From music, now they've got AI as a music platform. It will just be an AI musician with albums back to back. It's AI and shit.
And they said like there was a bunch of people, like millions of listeners that they didn't even know. Like a lot of them.
So, check that out, man. But when you hear it, you can kind of tell. But at the same time,
Some of them like
right.
you'd have to, the thing with it's funny because the music already they ruined the quality of it already to where it's like auto tune,
damn near.
the same beat, whatever.
It damn near sounds AI already.
I know. So it's like a lot of artists you just think that mainstream shit, it just all kind of has the same kind of feel and sound.
All music, when they get in the studio, they all alter the voice. When you hear them live, they don't sound like that. A lot of them are trash. You don't even have to be able to sing or have a natural talent. So people are banging the hits. They say you try and mess around with the hit with the track. That's because they're altering the voice. So they all do it to all. They all alter the voice. So really, we've been listening to altered voices. However long. Now, what I'm saying, they can just go in that studio as long as you go, start mumbling, it's auto-tune. It sounds like, you know what I'm saying? It sounds like you're recording it.
That's what I mean, it's like the live performances, like, there's a lot of them getting exposed for like, what do they call it, not where they were miming,
Yeah.
miming along.
Because what they do is they play the track, and then sometimes they play the track, and you can hear them singing on the track. Sometimes they're playing the track, they're acting like they're actually singing what the track is. So it's crazy. But a lot of times, like, they just play the track, and they don't even have to be saying anything.
I mean, they said as well, it's like when it was it Milli Vanilli? Back in the day.
Right.
They got caught out doing that. There was a whole thing. But then they said it's like nowadays, even if people are caught doing it, a lot of people don't even care. So then, you know, what's like beyond that? It's like when it gets to AI, they'll just be like, oh, you know, whatever, as long as it sounds nice.
Yeah, they basically was spitting, and then you know, the tape jammed. You know, probably got set up.
You might have fully just got set up in the air. They were like the most ultimate products. They're probably doing it to see how much of a product.
And then the shit jammed on their ass and shit.
You heard them and just like, they sounded fucking terrible.
Right. You got a photo oh shit.
Ephesians chapter 5 verse 15 says, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil.
There's AI uprising. Now they're actually calling it the AI revolution. That's the actual point that Tony Blair was pushing. You know, this AI revolution, we need, that's what they kept saying. You know what I'm saying? We need to get involved in this. It doesn't matter about left or right politics. He actually said that. The interview was crazy. And they kept asking him about different things. And he kept bringing it back to ID. I couldn't believe it, man. They'd be asking him about something else. About some kind of palaces and you know, interest rates. And what he would do is go, look, the real issue here is and that's what he was doing. He kept going back to that AI revolution.
Crazy, because
We need.
you know,
I got a precept. This is Revelation chapter 12 verse 12. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time.
he's coming down with that great breath, man. He's bringing out everything.
Right.
So even with like the whole media news circus and everything, it's actually like it's basically been exposed. It's exposed. These men can just produce narratives however they like. And they've like a lot of them, they just flipped how people kind of look at things altogether. Because like with the AI thing, it's no matter what. Thing is now you had like SpaceX IPO yesterday, and then people are going to be optimistic of it because they're making money off it. And there's a lot of people when they might be like, oh, I bought some stock. There's people doing like street things saying, oh, buy some stock. I bought stock. I expect it to go up, blah blah blah. You know, they're optimistic about it. It's like once you buy stock, you're investing. Then they'll be thinking like, oh shit, they want a piece of it. Then they start pushing forward the. You know, these different, different aspects. Well, the V system, they just start, pushing towards that, and people will be accepting of it.
Yep. Then they call it gradualism. You know, how they get people so used to technology in a certain way, the upgrades of it. Because that's what they're saying. They're calling it the new industrial revolution. Because now, in warehouses, you've got robots, you don't need people, it's like all that shit, you know what I'm saying? And then they've got the drones, Amazon and places where delivering food to people and shit. like the flying drone in the sky, it drops like a castle. You know what I'm saying? You got then again the robots that are in the factories, so they won't need manual labour. You know, so they're doing it, and then they're gonna chip people. So and they've been putting it in all these films, these movies, and that. But now it's actually happening. Right? And you've had a lot of people getting chipped. Musk, Neuralink. I mean, that's the perfect name for that type of shit.
I forgot to tell you. I forgot that I saw that. I was going to tell you.
I got one.
Yeah, so you talk to the average Joe about Neuralink. They're thinking like, yeah, I can't wait for it. So they're just victims for the taking, man.
Yeah, so how many people are going to really, when it comes down to this lack of bread and food, and because the easy way to do that is with the war. They already showed you that through the Strait of Hormuz, man, where basically you went in supermarkets and the petrol prices, with gas, diesel prices went up because of the Strait of Hormuz, and then there was things that were lacking in certain shops and all that, man. So, they're straight up. War is a tool as well. There's a documentary called All Wars and Bankers Wars. Right? So the bankers, international bankers, use war for their agenda or agendas. Okay? And we already know what World War II, what the agenda of that was about. That set up, that set up the Hitler thing in the small acts being able to go in that bank. We all know it was set up.
That's about, I got a precept. Right, this is because you're talking about this war. Like Esau using wars all the time for his agenda, right? This is Revelation chapter 6, verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. And that they should
The earth is in a state. Right now, people are getting bombed into smithereens in the Middle East. Just different places in the world. There's poverty places, you know what I'm saying? There's a disease warfare going on. Okay. The earth's absolutely leaking. Industrially, chemically wide. The elites of society have destroyed the world, basically. Even added to that, it looks like examining toys all the life. That's why the scripture says that the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Okay? The earth could be in a way better. It could be food.
Like when I lived
for everybody. Shit like that. But there ain't. Why is that? Because the elites of the society, it's part of their agenda. They need to have people oppressed so they can be at the top. They ain't gonna be. You don't work like you've got a kingdom, but you join everybody's equal and shit. But how does that work? But obviously they go too far with it. There ain't nothing wrong with having a hierarchy in society. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got,
It's gonna happen no matter what.
it's gonna, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody can be the ruler, king, so the judges. You have to have like citizens and things like that. But to completely have people where they're struggling for fucking meals. Even the average people in England watch documentaries and that, man. That's what happens. Every payday, motherfuckers have got to go and get budget tins.
Yeah, what was it? Food banks? Yeah, they said like 20% or something of people like need a food bank to get through a month.
That's
It's like it's meant to be the first world.
yeah.
I'm meant to be doing well out here.
They're not doing well, man. They live in all these people live off credit anyway. And have to pay it back every other month. They live off thousands of pounds of fucking debt.
Right, well,
Food scarce, fucking, you know what I mean? And mortgages are scarce.
Yeah, mortgage is just a fucking job. Yeah. You say you're paying that for your whole life.
Definitely.
So I'm gonna give it to my kids, and then guess what, man? You don't even get to enjoy that shit.
40%.
Well, some people die and then the fucking mortgage is passed to the kid, but then there's still like $500,000 still to pay on this. And the kid has to pay $500,000, which is never, that he or she can never fucking afford. And they end up taking it anyway. And then, you know what? You don't own shit anyway because the land that it sits on is owned by the feudal. The land that it sits on is owned by the feudal masters anyway, aka the Rothschilds. You don't own shit. You know, what did Klaus Schwab say? Klaus Schwab, he said you shall own nothing and be happy. That's how they want all you people, man. Owning nothing and being happy, which they are.
You want to sing a
Hey,
song?
you know, when you
Are you
saw
singing?
that, hi.
Are you
We
singing
are-
it?
we
Are
are-
you singing?
We are singing, you know.
What are you singing?
We're singing the Bible, the truth.
Are you in choir? Are you in choir? Huh? Are you in choir?
Have you ever read the
Singing
book
the
of Psalms?
gospel.
Huh?
You read the book of
Gospel,
Psalms
yeah.
before?
Yes, sir.
Well, you're Irish, right? You guys would be Israelites. Yeah, man. I'm trying to make fun, but they're making fun of themselves. Because they're actually Israelites.
No, so I was like, Royce, even when they engage.
But
it's just
ain't no
like,
wrong, because the scriptures does say that that we're singing a song.
Yeah.
Pipe tongue to them.
They're probably going to watch some concert any goddamn. The
What, Belfast?
the Irish do love a good sing along and jigging.
Belfast is on fire. They're fighting Belfast, isn't it? Because they had a false flag over there in East Belfast. But what I saw was that the people that are actually rioting in East Belfast are actually English people. They're Protestants, you know, people that are English descendants.
Yeah, the IRA side, they're not
No.
there. So that's what I gotta say it so people understand. The different side, you got the Protestant and then you got the Catholic. That's why it's all British flag, so it's the one that
It's the
in
they know-
unity with the UK and that, the Crown. And then obviously the rebels
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
because they
Basically, they're the ones that still side with Britain
Hey, well, check
against
this.
racism.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't know that Ireland, IRA, they're not even just them, but they were in with Middle Eastern forces and shit.
Yeah.
Who the hell is it now? Gaddafi and that, they were down with Gaddafi. They actually side with let's say Palestine side and that.
Yeah,
And Gaddafi and all that, they've been doing that.
yeah,
They've been doing that. Their forces and that.
yeah.
People don't know that. People think that that's they don't know that. So
Yeah, those ones
because they don't like the British Crown, so they've been siding against it for how many damn years? That's
Well,
why there's
that's-
that thing going on and shit.
This is Ezekiel 33, verse 32. It says, and lo, thou art unto them as a very lovely... In fact, let me start from 31. It says, and they come to thee as the people cometh, and they sit before thee as my people. And they hear thy words, but they will not do them.
That's talking about Israel, man. Like the 2/3 of Jake. You know what I'm saying? They'll hear the word of the Heavenly Father, but they ain't doing it, man. Same thing today. You know what I'm saying? Listen, man. You go to every Sunday. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. That's every black church, isn't it? Come on, you know it. You know it. You laughing because it's true. It's true. I love Jesus. Hold my hands up and clap for Jesus. They all do it. In America, in motherfucking England, black people so-called love Jesus, right? But you don't keep the word of the Heavenly Father, man.
Are we not meant to?
Huh?
Are we not meant to?
Yeah, the real Lord of the Bible. But if you heard about the real Lord, I guarantee you're gonna run up there with the rest of them sisters. You gonna run up there when you hear the real truth. Hey, let me tell you something. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
What do you feel about respecting your man and cooking and cleaning for your man and being under your man's authority?
Yeah.
Where you from? Oh yeah, Zimbabwe. Okay. I hear that. See, you still
But
got.
then I have a question.
Go on.
What are you bringing?
Huh?
For you need to do all that. Why are you
Yeah, here we go. Feminism.
It came out.
Sister,
It
that's
came out.
feminism. Where you
Hey,
going?
she running.
It's from a proper side, man. It's from a proper side.
She ran down the street,
So she
man.
actually running down the street.
What are you gonna bring to the table?
There you go, but that's no, because you know she's Zimbabwean, so she a Jake, but you know that they still got there you go.
That's that
Modern
westernized mindset.
westernized woman.
What are you gonna bring?
But that's the same thing. What did the Bible just say? They love to hear shit. Bro,
Yeah.
she'll be in church on Sunday. The same women.
Yeah,
like
tomorrow,
that,
man. She'll be
with
there.
tambourines
Yeah.
and nice dresses on. But when it comes to like actually following what the Bible says, too far that Jake ain't doing that shit, man. They don't give a fuck about what the word really says. The only ones that really care is us. Let's have it right, man. I love the Lord. Well, and if loving the Lord is wrong, I don't want to be right. That's these motherfuckers out here, man.
Well, number one, man, let it be fucking pork.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're being pork. Yeah, true.
Okay, they don't follow the scriptures, man. We've got a lot of maggots out there that are trying to push that. Got a lot of maggots out there trying to push that, like, that you can eat pork according to the Bible. No, you fucking can't. No, you fucking can't, man. Okay? That's it.
Pork eating Christians. All that shit. They hear the